Open the file titled Font Tuning. You'll probably get this. This indicates that there is a type layer in the file that doesn't have a font. And by not having a font, I mean the font is not loaded to your computer. When you see this, just say OK. And here's the file we'll be working with. So the things you'll really want while we're moving around are your zoom tool, which is here at the bottom, and with your zoom tool you can either click to move in and move out. To move out, hold down Option, in, out. You can also hold down Option and click and drag, so there's a bunch of different options for zooming in and out. The other thing is pan, and what we'll actually use is, instead of coming over here for this tool, you just hold down the space bar anytime that you want to move your image around in the window. So let's start up at the top. Now, I have my workspaces set to typography, so if you don't have yours, it's up in the control toolbar. Grab over here in the drop down and change it to typography. And I even told mine to reset typography, so everything is back to the way Photoshop defaults to. Now, I don't need the paragraph styles or character styles, so I'm just going to double click on one of those tabs and it will collapse that group. You can see I've got a lot of layers here. Each one of these, for the most part, is its own layer, and if you scroll down, you'll notice that there is one with a little alarm symbol. We'll get to that. That's our missing font. So let's start up at the very top. Grab your type tool, should be the horizontal type tool, and click inside the first word that says increased tracking, which makes this editable. Tracking is the distance between each letter in a series of letters, and you can affect the tracking in a couple of ways. You can highlight the text and then come to the character panel, and the character panel has a VA with arrows going to the right and left. That is the tracking. You'll notice the number on this is set to 300. Now if you want to see what the automatic is, you can click on that and choose 0. So knowing how to go back to the auto setting for these is also a good thing, just because sometimes your type might be a little bit funky and it's helpful to return it to automatic just to even the playing field. Now you can change the tracking from here in a number of ways. You can type in a number, so I'm going to type in 50 and you saw that change. You can also click and drag on the VA. So all these things that we'll be adjusting today, if you click and drag on the little symbol by the drop down, you can drag to the left or the right and it will increase the tracking. Now push enter or command return to finalize your type. Might have to do it a couple of times. And let me just show you, you don't actually need to highlight. You can still do this to the entire bit of type if you're just on that layer. So I'm going to grab the VA by clicking on it and dragging, and again it will change it. So if you have text highlighted, it will only affect that text. But if you want to affect all of the text that is part of that layer, you might as well just click on the layer. So increased tracking is where we spread things apart. Crashing, or crash tracking, or crashed kerning even, is when the letters have the spacing so close that they're actually touching one another. And I would change this the same way that I changed the other. So I've just clicked on the word crash tracking to get to that layer, and then I'm going to hit enter so I don't even have all of those flashing lines to distract me. And I'm going to come up here and just go to the VA, and you'll notice this is set into the negative, and I'm going to click on that drop down and choose 0, which will set it back to the auto tracking. With your type tool selected, click on Fix the Kerning to go to that layer, and this time what we'll do is we'll place the active line of where that type is right between the 0 and the 1. So click between the 0 and the 1 of the 2015. If you use your right and left arrow keys, you can move around by character in this text. Now you'll notice if I go from the 0 and push my arrow button once, it hops right over to the other side of the 1. So there's quite a bit of space between the 0 and the 1, and as well as between the 1 and the 5. And those are not actually spaces, that is kerning. So kerning is the distance between one character and the next, whereas tracking was the distance between the characters of a larger piece of text. So often you need to adjust tracking, especially when you're doing a headline or using a fancy font, and if anything just kind of stands out as looking like it's separated from the word that it should belong to, you need to kern it in. So to do that, you place the cursor between the two letters that you want to affect, hold down Option on a Mac or Alt on a PC, and then use your left or right arrows to bring that type in. So if I use my left, it moves it closer. If I use my right, it moves it further away. And then when I let go of Option, I can use my left and right arrow keys to move to the next place that needs to be fixed. So holding Option again and using my left arrow key, I'm going to hop over here. A space between the Y and the next letter is pretty common, so I'm going to hold down Option and use my left arrow key to fix that. And then over here in Extraordinary, we actually have some crashed text where instead of having too much space, there's not enough space. So I'll move between the T and the R, hold Option, and use my right arrow key. And again, here between Ordinary. So I'm just flipping around and holding down Option anytime I want to actually move some of that type. And it's really just an eyeball thing, and you want to make it look good. And if it stands out and looks odd, you know you need to fix it. When you're done, hit Command Return or Enter to finalize that type.